All right, we're live. This is so exciting. Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas, you filthy
Merry,
animals.
Merry Christmas, Ryan. Are you
Merry
having a
Christmas, Rick.
wonderful holiday?
Yes, it is. It's the most wonderful time of the year, and I had a really, really great Christmas, despite literally everything that's been going on this year and seemingly eking into next year. That didn't stop me from having a great day with my family and my extended family, and I don't know. Today just felt like a really good day for me.
Oh, so glad. Yeah, me too. I had a really nice day. I actually stayed overnight at my parents' last night. We had most of our sort of festivities yesterday because two of my sisters live in Great Britain right now. And so it was easier for them to do things yesterday than to do things today. And so we did our little gift exchange yesterday, which was a lot of fun. And I got the art book of Soul, which was very exciting from my brother. So good present giving going on there. And I love art books. And then we had normally for our Christmas Eve meal, we do like a German meal, but because I'm trying to not have as much salt, we actually went for we changed things up and we had a enchiladas and a Mexican meal, and it was delicious. It was really fun.
Because I've been to Germany, and literally the first ingredient in everything is salt. Like even down to the sweet stuff. It's like,
Yeah.
all right, we're gonna make some Stollen. First ingredient, salt.
Right. And the especially the sauerkraut that I love so much is very, 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 very salty. And so we were kind of trying to, and they were more on the lighter side, I would say, of sort of Mexican food. They weren't like drowning in cheese and things like that. So that was really good. My mom scored on the meal making. She even made like these sort of cranberry virgin margarita drinks things that were so good, where she had orange juice and sugar on the rim of the glasses. It's like, ooh, this is fancy.
Just gonna say, add some ginger ale, and you got yourself a Shirley Temple.
That's right. It's like a Christmas Shirley Temple. It was very exciting. But yeah, we usually do our bigger meal on Christmas Eve in our family. But it was just the three of us. So that was different. And actually, it was kind of interesting because of all of the last like 4 or 5 years, I've actually been alone on Christmas Day because my parents, we've always celebrated like a week or two early. So then my parents could go visit one of my siblings that actually have kids, and which is fine. And it's just kind of ironic that in this isolated, strange year, I actually ended up being with people on Christmas.
It only took a pandemic for you to finally see your parents again on Christmas Day.
That's right. That's right. But it was great. It was a really nice day. And so, yeah, well, we thought that we had some good experiences with our live streams that we've done at the end of the month, the last few months. So we thought it might be fun this week, instead of doing a recorded, edited podcast like we usually do with Hidden Gems. We thought it would be fun, since there's all these new films getting released to streaming, particularly Soul to Disney Plus and Wonder Woman 84 to HBO Max, that it would be fun to do kind of a live version of our Hidden Gems podcast. And typically with Hidden Gems podcast, we try to talk about the smaller named titles. And so obviously that's not exactly in keeping, but we just thought it would be fun to try something different for Christmas. And so we're going to be talking today about Promising Young Women, which is we saw in the theaters, and then and I think it's Prime VOD, I think. And then we're going to talk about Wonder Woman 84, and then we're going to talk about Soul to end off the program. And I might throw in a couple other little reviews while we're going. But yeah, this is a pretty busy for how slow the release schedule has been this year. All of a sudden, have really actually 6 releases on Christmas Day. 3 of these major ones that we're talking about. It's pretty crazy how it all ended up working out.
Yeah, and I was actually looking at the release schedule for next year on Cinema Blend, and they made it pretty clear that things are still unstable, but the schedule looks pretty stacked. So fingers crossed that it stays that way,
Yeah.
because if I have the choice to watch Godzilla vs. Kong on HBO Max or in the theater, my happy butt's going to travel 15 minutes down the road to watch it at the theater, just
Right.
given the choice.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I obviously would prefer the theater, although I will say that watching Wonder Woman 84, there were certain things about it that I liked being able to be with, because I had my friend Jen and another friend over to watch it. And there is something interactive about that kind of viewing that's unique that you can't do in a theater because you don't want to disrupt people, but kind of making comments and talking and doing different things like that is kind of fun. It's sort of its own advantage but I still always obviously prefer to be at the theater, but yeah, it's you make the best West with what you have. I gave positive reviews to every single movie opening this weekend. There's also News of the World, which opened today in theaters and in Prime Video on demand. And this stars Tom Hanks, and it's a Western directed by Paul Greengrass, and he finds this girl. He's this man who goes to town and delivers the news to people in this kind of presentation, this entertaining. He's like a storyteller, basically. And he finds this girl who only speaks the native language, Kiowa, I think was the name of the tribe. Anyway, and so he starts on this journey to try to return her to her aunt and uncle. And there's lots of Old West nefarious people, outlaws and stuff out to stop him. And I enjoyed it. I thought it was very beautiful. Tom Hanks is really good. It's a little slow. It's not going to be for everybody, but I know, but I think you would like it, Ryan. I know that you're a pretty big Western fan, so I think you would be a fan of this. I liked it, and I'm not that big a Western fan, so I think that you would probably like it.
Just saying, hearing you talking about it, a Western directed by Paul Greengrass and starring Tom Hanks, that's 3 yeses already for me. And I'm actually gonna see it in the theater on New Year's Day, which is next Friday. So that's gonna be nice.
That'll be really fun. Yeah, I'll look forward to hearing what you have to say. I gave it on my review a 7 out of 10. So pretty good, I think. The only thing I was a little bit unsure of is the motivations of the outlaws. I was just a little bit unclear about why they cared about this man and this girl. What was their motivation? Was a little confusing to me, but I still overall enjoyed it. So, and then there's also a movie called One Night in Miami that opens this weekend, and this is directed by Regina Hall, and this I saw as part of TIFF, and it is it's a kind of a mock fictionalized telling of as if Malcolm X, Cassius Clay, Jerry Brown, and Sam Cooke all were together after the big win for Cassius Clay before it became Muhammad Ali, and I liked it. It's very much like a play. So if you don't like movies that really feel like a play, you won't like it. So it felt very stagey to me, but I did enjoy it, and I gave a 7 out of 10 to it. And yeah, so let's talk about Promising Young Woman. So this movie it's about a woman who, because of a trauma that was inflicted upon her and her and her friend in her college years, she is very bitter and angry, and she decides to kind of teach men a lesson, men in these bars a lesson. And this whole her big kind of revenge is against this, what I call like boys will be boys kind of college fraternity type of environment. And so she basically kind of tricks these men into taking her home, even though they think she's intoxicated, try to make an advantage of her, and then she shows them, tries to teach them a lesson. Well, the thing about the movie is that, some people are coming like, oh, it's so like woke or whatever, or it's anti-man. It's really not. It's about this one woman with her vendetta against individual. It's not saying, like, I don't think there's anything in this movie that's saying her choices are like what should be done. Like, she pays a price for them. We won't get into spoilers, but she pays a price for them, and she's very, very bitter, and she hates all the female characters in the movie too, with exception of maybe her mother, but I don't even know if that, but she is, her revenge is equal on the men and the women characters. So she is a bitter character. And so it's a revenge thriller, but it doesn't forget to have a sense of humor. I said in my review that I felt like it did what Black Christmas last year was trying to do, to kind of comment on college consent and problems in college campuses, and but it did it so much better because it didn't forget to. It was just about one woman and her choices. It wasn't trying to talk to all women and invalidate all women's choices, and it was also didn't forget to have a sense of humor about it. And so I enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. And I actually liked the ending because I thought it just had that like sweet revenge kind of about it. But I don't know, Ryan, what did you think about it?
I think Promising Young Woman is kind of like a payday bar. It is delicious, but it is nuts. It is literal nuts.
Good comparison.
When I was watching this, I was, first of all, when I first heard about this movie, I was like, oh boy, this is going to be another one of those, one of those like all men are bad kind of movies. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily a problem. It just, having seen Black Christmas from 2019, which just made me want to walk myself into the sea, I wasn't excited for it. Yeah. And about 30 minutes into this movie, I was like, wow, this is far better than I could have ever imagined. Because like you said, Rachel, this isn't like a all men are bad kind of movie. Like you said, Carey Mulligan's character hates all the women too. She's not exactly a big fan of life in general. The people that she feels any feelings for are her parents. Her father's played by Clancy Brown. Always nice to see him. Yeah. And without going in too deep into spoilers, there's a character in the movie played by Alfred Molina who made a lot of choices in the past, but I feel like by the end was redeemed, and that's about as far as I'll go. But Alfred Molina's character, I think really the only redeemable character outside of the parents that at least got a little bit of, okay, he did a good thing here. But outside of that, I think Carey Mulligan's entire character is just based around she was slighted, nobody cared, and so she's just going to try and take a little piece of revenge for herself.
Yeah. She's angry and rightfully so, in the sense of there was something horrible that was done to her and her friend. She is right to be upset by that, to be angry about that. But then what she goes about to solve the problem is just making things worse and isn't helpful. But I don't feel like the movie pretends that it is. It's not like, because the problem with Black Christmas is that it made every other choice except for being the way that the heroine was. Every other choice was invalid and wrong. And every other way to be a woman was wrong, except for to be this kick butt, whatever kind of woman. And all men were terrible in that movie. And in this case, it's obvious that she is a toxic character. She is a wounded. She's not somebody that we're supposed to be emulating or admiring in any way. She is a wounded character. But like I said, the movie doesn't forget to have a little bit of sense of humor about it. And so there's certain moments like when they're dancing to Paris Hilton in the grocery store, or just some other things that were like amusing and funny. And I think Carey Mulligan is so good in this.
Yeah, I never say this because I if anyone hasn't caught up on this, I have no trust in the Oscars whatsoever. They can just disappear and I wouldn't mind. But I think she deserves to be nominated for Best Actress for this. And I hope that she wins. And I don't know what the Oscar criteria is going to be for this year. And most years, I don't care. But because of extemporaneous circumstances, it's going to be a lot different. But at the very least, I hope Carey Mulligan gets at least a nomination because she deserves it. And really the only movie I remember her being in was that weird Great Gatsby movie from 2013, directed by Baz Luhrmann, which is supposed to take place in the 1920s, and yet Jay-Z is on the soundtrack. Bit of a
isn't she in Drive?
Yes, she is.
Yeah.
Stupid me in my brain. Yes, she is. She's the driver's love interest, and throughout the entire movie, I was like, where have I seen her before outside of Great Gatsby? And it never occurred to me until literally just now.
She's also in a movie that's quite good called In Education. When she was younger, it's about a teenager girl and a relationship that she has, and that I liked quite a bit. And something else. But yeah, The Great Gatsby. She can be quite talented. Oh, she's also in, I was going to say Pride and Prejudice, but I knew that wasn't right. She's in Far From the Maddening Crowd, which I actually think, even though I momentarily forgot it, I think it's actually underrated. I really enjoy it. I think the cinematography and the movie making, I think in general it's an underrated period piece, if you want to see something like that. Far From the Maddening Crowd. So she's a good actress, and I just appreciate what the director, her name is Emerald Fidel, I think is what is it? Emerald Fidel. And I think that she managed to walk this tightrope of saying something and basically being a morality play against this sort of boys will be boys culture, without it being the only thing about it. Like, she didn't forget to have a sense of humor and to have to make it be a little bit fun, even though it's kind of chilling and there's a bit of a thriller at the end. There's a part of it that is kind of fun. I think that you're just like, yes, the satisfying in the end, because you see our what happens with our hero. And so I don't know, I enjoyed it. I had a good time with it. There's gonna be some people who just will have their mind made up about it, and they're not gonna they're gonna see it as some kind of woke agenda movie, and that's too bad, because I think there's a lot to enjoy in it.
Yeah, I remember seeing the trailer for this movie all the way back in March. Remember March? And I was thinking to myself, oh, well, due to all this virus stuff, it's probably going to go to Amazon or Netflix, and no one's really going to care all about it too much. Well, it got released in theaters, and we're talking about it, so shut my mouth.
Yeah, and some people just won't like it, and that's fine too. I know my friend Alonso Duralde, he didn't care for it, and he agrees with all the positions that's trying to say, but he didn't think it was successful, and that's completely fair. I gave it an 8 out of 10.
Well, I'm going to be starting to review newer releases on my channel again, and I'm going to be resurrecting my old scale of amazing, great, good, forgettable, and horrid. And I'd say this movie falls under the great category.
All right.
I think I think it gets a little tonally inconsistent. There's some weirdly placed humor that I was like, are we really supposed to be making fun of this kind of stuff? But outside of that, I this is definitely one of the more interesting movies that I've seen all year, especially in the twist and turns department. Not even Tenet like has this many twists and turns. I guess that twist like about a half an hour in. But in
Right.
Promising Young Woman, there was not just one fake out ending, but two, and that's all I will say in regards to that.
Yeah, I think it definitely surprises you, that's for sure. And it definitely has things to talk about, which I appreciate. And so, all right, well, very good. Well, let's talk about Wonder Woman 84. So here we go. Talking superhero movies on YouTube. Get ready.
We might as well all get under our desks right now.
I know. Will you'll guard me from you'll shield me from
Oh,
there we go. Got it. Okay. So Wonder Woman 84. Yeah, so of course I loved the original Wonder Woman movie. Everybody knows that. I thought it was so good. And I really emotionally connected with the character. And that doesn't mean that I was unaware of its flaws, but when you emotionally connect with the character, you're able to forgive a lot of flaws, right?
Sure.
And so I just thought it was so moving to see Diana go from being this sort of more naive character to her understanding the cruelty and inhumanity of man and what we would do in a case of war, and how we would treat each other, and just how devastating that is for her. And so I don't know, I loved the first movie. I thought it was really great, and it still makes me cry every time when she sees and realizes that Ares is not causing all of this, and that it's the humans themselves that are causing this war. And I don't know, it's just it's so sad to me, and so good. And I love No Man's Land. That was amazing. And so yeah, what did you think about the original Wonder Woman?
Oh, I love it. I think it's my second favorite DCEU movie behind Man of Steel. I think the ending leaves me a little cold because we're building up to Danny Houston being the reveal of being the bad guy, but in the end, it's Remus Lupin all along, and it just like really. I mean, I get what they were trying to go for, but I just would have liked a little bit more build up, I suppose, because literally David Thewlis appears in like maybe one or two scenes and then never appears again until he's like, "Hello, Diana. I was Ares. I was Ares all along." You know, like,
Yeah.
where
And
did
I don't
you
even
come
think
from?
that was needed, because I think the true villain of the movie was mankind, was this war. The war was the villain, not you didn't even need the Lupin character, I don't think.
Yeah, and Danny Houston has played nothing but villains his entire career. Like his arc writes itself. But
Right.
outside of that, though, I do think the original Wonder Woman is great. It still holds up to this day. I love I love like 90% of it. I think it was wonderful.
Mhm. So now we have Wonder Woman 84. And in this sequel, we have her being in 84, which it doesn't really make sense. If people are invested in the DCU as far as the timeline goes, that does not make sense at all, really, because she's supposedly been completely in hiding when we first meet her in Batman v Superman. So that doesn't really make sense if she's out there being Wonder Woman in 84. But it doesn't matter. I don't care about that. As long as the movie is good, that doesn't matter to me as far as continuity. But I can see why that would matter to other people that are like invested in this universe. I'm not. But anyway, so she is involved in kind of stopping petty crime and things like that in 1984. And then we get to meet the villain of the film, Maxwell Lord, the main villain, played by Pedro Pascal. And there is this wishing stone. And we're not going to get too into spoilers, but then there's also the character of, there's Barbara, which is played by, I forget her last name, but it's played by Kristen Wiig.
Kristen Wiig. Yeah.
Yeah, and Barbara Minerva. And she is very envious of Wonder Woman and of Diana and really envies her. So what was your overall thoughts, first of all, about the movie?
Well, I think I should get this out of the way right away. The original is much better than this movie. Like, by a significant margin, it's not even close. However, there is some stuff that I did like about this movie. It's complicated. Let me talk about my biggest problem with this movie. There's too much of it. It's 2.5 hours long. And there was like so many places where I could be like, this could be cut, this could be cut, this could be cut right here. And I'm not an editor. I'm not even close. I can barely edit my own videos, for gosh sakes. But I was sitting there the entire time like, what purpose does that hold? Nothing. Like the scene where Chris Pine is trying on all the 80s clothes. It's funny, but what does that add to the general story? Nothing.
Yeah.
Just in general, there's like DC, God bless them. I'm a defender of the DCEU. I unironically love Batman v Superman, the Ultimate Edition. I have died on that hill on multiple occasions. But God bless the DCEU. They try and cram so much into their movies, and in some cases I can defend them, but sometimes, in the case of Wonder Woman 1984, I really can't, because it's like trying to be a Wonder Woman movie, then an origin story for Max Lord, then a Cheetah movie, and then they're all trying to cram it all together. And it kind of almost works, but at the same time, it also doesn't. It's a delicate act, and unless your names are Joe and Anthony Russo, I don't think you're going to be able to pull all of that off. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I was really struggling of whether to give this a fresh or rotten. I was right on the line, and I know that people don't like to hear that. They want to think that we just have this clear of like, it's going to be rotten or it's going to be fresh.
Fan sitter.
Yeah, that's right. But I really struggled with this. It was definitely, without a doubt, disappointing. I definitely expected it to be better, but there was enough overall that I liked that I gave it a 5.5 out of 10. So just a hair over my middle ground, right? And I think the main thing, it's hard to make this character unlikable and unenjoyable for me. I just love her so much, and I love Gal Gadot's performance of her so much. I mean, I loved her in Justice League. I loved her in Batman v Superman. She was the best part of that movie for me. I loved the original Wonder Woman. So I know she is just so good in this role. And I think that they were perhaps too attached to the idea of bringing back Chris Pine because they have such great chemistry, and there's so many lovely scenes with them together. But I think the artifice of what they had to do to bring them together, and this was what I was worried about, it didn't really work for me. But
it's never explained. It is never explained in the slightest. And that was my big concern. When I saw Chris Pine in the first trailer, I was like, how is he back? He was blown up in a plane with like 1,000 metric tons of mustard gas. how was he even in one piece, let alone alive?
Yeah.
And to the movie's credit, they try and do this thing where to the outside world, it's a completely different person, but only Diana can see Steve. But even then, that opens another can of worms, and you're just like, how can Diana see him, but yet no one else
It
does?
doesn't really make sense. I mean, we don't want to get too into spoilers, but I enjoyed seeing them back together because they do have such great chemistry, but it
Oh, yeah.
doesn't really work. But they did have some nice sequences. I loved them in the Invisible Jet. I thought that was great. I thought,
That was one of my favorite parts of the movie. Just
mhm.
when he figures out how to fly, and she's like, they have radar now, and that's really funny. And then he's flying, and then she's like, I'm gonna try and turn this invisible, but it's been about 50 years. And he's like, you're gonna try it now? And she's like, last time I tried it, it was on a coffee cup, but I lost it. That was actually really funny.
Yeah, yeah. And we have John, let's see, says, is it wrong if the hype makes me not want to see it right away? The first one was great indeed. Yeah, and I totally get it. And I think that this is going to be something that I am going to be struggling with all year in 2021, is because there's all of these movies that, because normally I try to separate myself from the hype, but it's hard when you've had these movies that were scheduled to be out once and then it's scheduled to be out again. It's changed. And so now we've had sort of not just one hype kind of cycle on them. We've had 3, 4 hype cycles on them. That's tough to kind of then approach it with just sort of a normal outlook. I don't know. Are you struggling with that at all?
It goes by case basis, but the more I was watching the movie, because I've watched it on HBO Max, the
Mhm.
more I was saying to myself, maybe it was a bit of a smart move for them to put it on their streaming service, because if they didn't, and if they had just done strictly theaters, then I'm thinking that, and I'm not a box office expert, I'm not even close, I barely pay attention to it, but it's common with blockbusters to have a really strong opening weekend and then have like a sharp drop, and then they just hover for a little until they
Yeah.
disappear. But I feel like with 1984, if it had just gone straight to theaters, then it would have had a good opening weekend and then a really steep dive, and then it would hover, but like hover at a lower pace than what normally would. And I don't know, I'm not Nostradamus
Mhm.
or anything, but just going off of my experience reading and paying attention to what little I have, it feels like that's just the conventional wisdom. So maybe it was the
Yeah.
smart thing for them to go, okay, theaters, but then you can also watch it at home on our new shiny streaming service. And
Yeah, and they really needed more viewers for more subscribers for HBO Max, and I think it encouraged that. And so I agree. I think it probably was the smart move because there's just so many theaters still closed, and I think that what would have been just the worst for the movie is if they'd had another delay, and then you're talking over a year's round of hype and marketing, and I mean, how much can you put into this movie? And I don't know. I think now that I've seen it, kind of like, yeah, it was probably the good call. It's probably
and
the good
again,
call.
I'm no expert, I'm no Ebert, I'm no Siskel, but
Yeah.
just going off of my gut, that's just my stance, and I'm staying with it.
The other thing that I felt like they could have leaned a lot more into the 84 setting, because I think it was probably a mistake to have it not be to have the second one not be in World War II. I think that just makes more sense. It kind of goes with the gravitas of Wonder Woman and her character. But to have her be, what has she been doing for all these years? Like,
She's
what?
apparently been working with the Smithsonian since its inception. She's their longest tenured employee,
Oh yeah,
according to
doing
this
exactly
paper.
the same. Nobody has wondered. I mean, when did she end up going over to the Louvre? Because that's where she was in Batman v
In
Superman.
right.
But I felt like they could have leaned more into the 80s stuff. Like my friends and I were saying the whole time, we're like, the hair isn't big enough, the clothes aren't flashy enough, the music, there was almost no 80s, like the score was really good and I loved that. But there, as far as the soundtrack, it's not like you heard a lot of 80s songs. in the soundtrack like you might in other films. And so I think they could have done more there. And I think they probably should have just gotten rid of Kristen Wiig's character. She was fine. I mean, she did an okay job, but it just made it feel too cluttered, and you couldn't justify both of them. And so I don't know, I think it ended up being kind of clumsy because of it. And I don't know why these DC movies insist upon having two villains.
I like the movies, and I still can't explain it. But to backtrack back to the whole 80s vibe, I felt the same way. I felt like you could literally set this in like 1884, and I think it would have felt no different, because like you said, the hair is not big enough. The music is like, there's some kids break dancing, but that's about it. Like, where are the little girls trying to look like Cyndi Lauper, and where are the boys with the Mania t-shirts, and Mr. T with the gold chains? And it's like I wasn't even born in the 80s, and I know what the 80s looks like because I've seen it in movies and TV, and an embarrassing amount of 80s wave that I listen to. That's neither here nor there. And to talk about the Cheetah character, I do agree. Like, you either make the character about Max Lord or you make it about the Cheetah. And there needs to be some decision, because in my opinion, and I was going back and forth on it, I think Max Lord's story is far more interesting than the Cheetah's, because and in the comics, the Cheetah is not even American. She's British, and she comes from a very wealthy family, and she gets into archaeology just because she wants to, and she becomes envious with Wonder Woman because Wonder Woman has things that money cannot buy, and then you have your rivalry there. And in here, she's just a nerd. I saw this thread on Twitter, and it's like, I hate it when nerds are portrayed as like the wire glasses, crazy hair looking, and I'm like, wait, that's clearly an exaggeration. And then I saw the movie, and I'm like, Twitter is usually where context goes to die, but I think they're onto something here. I don't know. That's
no, I agree. And you couldn't do enough with it. Just made it feel very basic. You couldn't do enough with the character. There just wasn't enough time, despite it feeling very bloated and overlong. And so then that's frustrating. But the other thing too, even though I think the Maxwell Lord character is good and well done, and I think especially the fact that you have his son, not to get too into spoilers, I think that helped provide a nuance to his character and a humanity to his character that really worked. But the problem I think I had was that they are obviously trying to talk about Trump and Trumpism, obviously, with his character. And that was like always the case, even going back to the comics, and I understand that. But if you're trying to make a movie about 1984, I feel like it's kind of distracting to have such a contemporary reference and have such a contemporary, kind of thing that feels so 2020. And so again, that kind of took me out of the setting and things. And
yeah,
I mean, this is no like Stranger Things kind of 1984 kind of film.
Yeah,
and nobody even had any bangs.
Yeah, I'm so bangs. Yeah, I'm so glad you picked up on the whole Trumpism thing, because I was sitting there like, should I bring it up because I brought it up because I don't want to come across as, oh, I'm the guy that thinks is all of that in here. No.
Yeah.
I don't know if I should bring this up, but there's literally a big thing with Maxwell Lord and a wall. That's as far as I'll go. And I'm just like, really? I wonder how that could be relevant to our current timeline. And to your point, Rachel, Trump wasn't even that big of a thing in 84. He was just the real estate guy. He wasn't the guy from The Apprentice or any of these other shows. He was just, pretty much all of his exposure was in like rap songs and stuff. And then maybe The Art of the Deal, but that's about it. Yeah. So to your point, Rachel, just bringing in all these comparisons and not comparisons and kind of hemming and hawing with the, oh, maybe it is like our current time, despite the fact that it's 40 years in the past. It's just like, wow, how very modern day of you.
Yeah. Yeah, so Aaron Johnson, he says, here's Kristen Wiig is a really funny actress. I think the writer should have given the cheetah character a good amount of empathy. Wiig does better as Lola Bunny, and Looney Tunes show, Lola Bunny is comical. I'm not the biggest Lola fan, but I get your point that, yeah, the writers did seem to have a little bit of kind of contempt for her character. It's almost like they were irritated with her character, and there wasn't a ton of empathy, I think, for her. And she did her best, I think, with the role. It felt unnecessary. It would have just been better if we had just been able to focus on Maxwell Lord. I think that would have made it way, way better. But as it is, I mean, I think it's a serviceable superhero sequel. It's certainly not going to go down as one of the best. It definitely is disappointing. But I said in my review, I said, is disappointing necessarily bad? I said that the let's see here. Let me find what I said. That it says here, I know it's hard for readers to accept critics can have mixed feelings on a film, and Rotten Tomatoes only exacerbates that problem. It forces us to pick a side, fresh or rotten, good or bad. Wonder Woman 84 is in the middle, but it feels bad because it is disappointing. And then I had a quote from my Justice League review. I said, but all of this aside, I can't deny that when I saw Superman fighting for truth and justice, it made me really happy. I guess since it did make me smile, I will give it a smile worthy, but just barely. I think I feel the same about Wonder Woman 84. I got enough joy out of seeing Diana back on screen, and the character made me smile enough to give it a smile worthy, but just barely. So
Yeah,
that's how I kind of felt about it.
I think on my scale of amazing, great, good, forgettable, and horrid, I think I'm going to have to blend a couple and say it's good, but forgettable at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, I basically agree. I have it just, I mean, it's hard when it's just you have the dichotomy of just, it's either good or it's bad. Which one are you going to pick? It's tough.
And
But
because we're a couple of terrible misfits, that's a callback to our last stream. Here's something controversial. I would happily watch Batman v Superman: The Ultimate Edition over this movie every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Don't ask me why. I just that's how I feel. And rest in peace to the comment section of this video. But that's how I feel on the matter.
I mean, I'm not a fan of Batman v Superman, but I think it does make more interesting choices, weird choices, whereas this makes more conventional choices. And so, I can see it. I don't agree, but I can see it. So I don't know. The weird part is that I think I like this better than Aquaman, because to me, Aquaman was just boring. I would rather watch this because at least I like Diana as a character so much more, and I just thought that Aquaman was very dull. But
Aquaman has a movie. Aquaman has an octopus playing the drums. How can you call that boring?
It was. I'm sorry. So much lancing in political dialogue. I was just like, But I'm weird. What can I say? I just like. I do hope they bring back Yahya Abdul-Mateen II as Black Manta at some point, because he was really good, and he should. And if they do make an Aquaman 2, I hope that he is the villain. I mean, that was a movie that also didn't need two villains, though, in my opinion.
That's a good.
But yeah. So we have Yuzu Melodia. She says, just watched the Wonder Woman sequel just now, and I'm commenting through this chat. So she says, nothing wrong with weird.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we all have these superhero movies that we like and don't like and you enjoy, and then there's all these ones that are kind of in the middle. And a lot of it comes down to our affection for the character. I've really been a huge fan of Wonder Woman for a long time. I love the 2009 animated film, which is certainly stronger than this. Like I said, she's been my favorite part of every single movie that she's been in, whether Justice League, whether Batman v Superman, whether her own film. And I love the comics. So I love Wonder Woman. And I love even the old show from the 80s. So, and it does have a really fun post-credits scene, I thought. I also love the opening sequence in Themyscira. That was really great. That was definitely a highlight. So mixed review, like I said, 5.5 out of 10. I did go fresh on it, but it is a mixed bag.
Yeah, and also before we move on, I want to give a shout out to Susan Eisenberg, who voiced Wonder Woman in the Justice League Unlimited television show. That's in a boxed set behind me. You all cannot see it, but it is back there. And Justice League and the Justice League animated show from 2001 to 2003 and Unlimited from 2004 to 2006 is one of my favorite animated shows ever. It's super underrated. And Wonder Woman was a frequent part of all of those episodes, and Susan Eisenberg crushed it every time. So give a shout out to her.
Yeah, we got awesome comment here. John Leslie says, "You two might be my new favorite movie review duo. Great chemistry." Thank you so much.
Shout out to you, John. You're awesome.
Yes, thank you. So we'll see. I think everybody should just watch the movie, decide for yourself what you like. There's no wrong answers. It's just a superhero movie. Just go and have fun or don't have fun, whatever you prefer.
The last thing I certainly want to be is a gatekeeper, because those are the type of people that are just like, have you had fun ever? Like, just seriously, it's a work of fiction. It's up to interpretation. It's like the classic quote from Lex Luthor from the original Superman. Some people read War and Peace and think it's a simple adventure story, and some people read the ingredients off a chewing gum wrapper and unlock the secrets of the universe. It really is up to you.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about Soul. So this is from Pixar. And so this obviously is a movie that I was super, super hyped for, talking about hype, because I love Pete Docter. I love all of his films with Monsters Incorporated, Up, and Inside Out. Incredible, incredible track record. And I loved Inside Out so much. And so then we get this new movie with this man who is this jazz singer, and his name's Joe, and he, our jazz player, and he is dreaming of becoming successful in jazz, playing jazz, and he ends up dying or partly dying. This is all in the trailer. It's not a spoiler. And he has to find his way back down to earth, and he ends up meeting a character named 22, played by Tina Fey. And she doesn't even want to come to Earth because she thinks that she's kind of jaded and cynical about it. And he's all on a kind of a quest to discover his spark. And I think the movie has a lot of interesting things to say. I really enjoyed it. I didn't love it. It's not one of my favorite Pixar films. It's definitely not my favorite Pete Docter film, but I did like it. And so but I'm not in the masterpiece camp. I feel like the movie kind of divides in sort of three sections, and I don't think that they really blend super well together. There's, without getting into spoilers, there's kind of the introduction to his character, and then he dies. And then there's time spent back on Earth. And then there's sort of a concluding chapter where everything gets kind of figured out. And I don't know if it quite meshed 100% for me, but I still really liked it. And it's certainly ambitious, and the animation is gorgeous. And it's a movie that you can really talk about, which I always appreciate when you can, what are they trying to do there? Like, it's kind of ambiguous at times. You don't know exactly what is going on. And I like that. And people could have different takes about it. But the one thing that I struggled with this movie is I don't know if it's really a family film at all. And I don't know if that's a problem, but I think kids are going to be bored by this movie. I don't think they're going to like it very much. I just don't think that they're going to relate to this kind of middle-aged man and his struggles very much. And there's not a lot of areas for them to connect as kids. And I don't know. Is that a problem? I don't know if it is a problem. I mean, I guess they can make a film just for adults, but it feels like a problem. It's something I've struggled with. And so those are kind of my jumbled thoughts about Soul. And I gave it a 7 out of 10 in my review. So what about you? What did you think?
Well, Rachel, I read your written review, and I listened to your points there, and I do agree with what you're saying in that I think some kids will not be as entertained by this as other Pixar movies go.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is a thing. I think I may have liked this movie a little bit more than you.
Mm-hmm.
At about the halfway point, I was like, okay, this is very weird, because in like just a couple of breaths, without going into spoilers, they make a joke about Karens, and I was like, well, that's something I didn't expect to see in a Pixar movie, a Karen joke. And then literally a couple sentences later, 22 brings up Orwell. I'm like, George Orwell? And it was like, wow. Like,
you make a funny joke about the Knicks too. I probably would give it an 8 now that I've had time to sit on it and see it twice. I probably bump it up to an 8, and maybe I'll change that even on my Rotten Tomatoes review from a 7. 7 seems a little low, but
yeah. But I think I may like this movie a little bit more than you, because the ideas that the movie does present they're relatable, at least to me, because the movie kind of, and I'm just freestyling here, it kind of presents two sides of a coin. One coin believes you have one passion that you are endowed with from birth, and you are to strive towards that. And then there's the other side that's like, okay, let's try and freeball it and see what happens.
But there's also sort of a message, I think, in the movie of be kind of wary of your dreams, because he's looking for his spark. But in actuality, there's also kind of like, has the search for your spark led you to not appreciate all of these other things in your life, including being a teacher? And has the search for the spark been a kind of a bit of a lie? And I was talking about it with my friend, and we're saying how that in some ways I feel like it's sort of the anti La La Land, because La La Land is all about how you pursuing your dream, and the dream, here's to the dreamers. And in this, from almost the very beginning, it's kind of criticizing that, I think, in a lot of ways, that like his mother is really kind of against these dreams, and kind of like, what has his dreams cost him in his life? And what is the spark? Is the spark him as an innate person, as a human with inherent value, or is the spark playing jazz?
Yeah, and bit of a side note, shout out to Felicia Rashad, who voices Joe's mother. Mm-hmm. I can't hate any movie with her in it. I think she's great.
Yeah.
But back to the main plot. I think it is interesting that a movie like this could stir up many different interpretations of the different ideas of, do you have a passion from birth, or are you supposed to find it yourself? And I think the movie shows that Joe eventually does get to his dream. He plays with, I can't remember the woman's name of the band.
Something.
Yeah, let's go with that. And he gets there, and he does it, and it's great. But then he's like, is this it? And so I think I like this movie a little bit more than you do, because it asks these questions, and it can be up to many different interpretations. It's like, could it be A or could it be B or could it even be C? And the movie's answer is yes. The narrative of this could be multiple choice, like the Joker's origin story.
Have you ever seen The World of Tomorrow, Don Hertzfeldt?
No, never have.
Well, see, so in The World of Tomorrow shorts, it's about a little girl who is asking kind of all these existential questions and ends up meeting up with the future version of herself that's a robot or clone. It's confusing, but anyway, and they are quite clever. They're very interesting, and in some ways, I feel like people are going to go into this movie, and I went into this movie expecting Inside Out, expecting this like emotional journey. Here's this little girl in Inside Out learning about home and family, and the sadness is valid, and sort of these really core principles. But I think it actually gives you World of Tomorrow. I think that's actually what this movie is more like and more about. And so that's one thing I would tell people is kind of go in expecting more of an existential experience as opposed to an emotional family film. I think if you're expecting more of a philosophical experience, I think you'll enjoy it a lot more than if you're expecting sort of an emotional narrative.
Yeah, that I was going to say jokingly, this is like what happens when Pixar gives Stanley Kubrick a budget.
Yes, that's right. Or even somebody like Charlie Kaufman. I think it has more in common with that kind of a movie. Like I'm thinking of Ending Things or Anomalisa or that kind of a thing, as opposed to something like Inside Out. And Johnny says Disney Animation meets Adult Swim. No, that's not what I mean about adult content. I mean that it's about an older person, about a middle. What is he supposed to be, like 50, 40, something? Anyway,
Pictures presents Family Guy.
It's just not about a child like Inside Out is. And so that's what I mean when I say adult, not adult as in mature content or something. And so it's definitely a bold movie. And I feel like actually Disney Plus is the perfect place for it. I don't know if you agree. But
No, I totally agree. And I was thinking to myself the entire time, I have no idea how this would fare if they had just done theaters only, because as someone who worked in a movie theater for over 3 years, whenever a Pixar movie came to town, it was like multiple like screenings of, they were like, you couldn't fit another person in there with Vaseline. Like it was just packed to the rafters. So Pixar is a massive draw. But I don't know with a movie like Soul, which despite the fact that I like it, is a very philosophical, very abstract kind of what does all of this mean kind of movie, where, to your point, Rachel, with Inside Out, where it has all these heavy ideas, but even if you get lost, you can come back to the emotional through line of Riley is going through all of these complex, I can speak, complex emotions, and she's trying to work it out in the best way that she can.
I think where the movie maybe loses me a little bit is when he comes back to Earth. And again, I don't want to spoil it too much, but that middle section I think in that section, they're trying to like bring some comedy, bring up there's like a crazy person that kind of keeps reappearing. And I think a lot of that stuff didn't really work super great. But it definitely ends. It ends strong. It begins strong. It's something that I've already seen it twice. I'm looking forward to seeing a third time. And the animation, we haven't talked enough about that. The animation is just absolutely stunning in this movie. That's the one reason I would love to see it on the big screen. Especially the scenes in the afterlife when you get this merging of 2D and CG that is just so beautiful. And so I loved that.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I saw Toy Story 4 last year, I was like, wow, this is like Pixar at its peak animation levels. And Soul was
Mhm.
like, hold our beer.
Yeah. We have some comments. User says, I think I liked the film on the same level as Rachel. Not exactly my favorite, but still had a pleasant experience with the film. I was quite a fan of 22, by the way. So there you go. And that's totally valid. You do not have to love everything that you see. It's perfectly fine to think that a movie is okay. You had an okay time with it. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I have very mixed opinions on Tina Fey. Sometimes she can be funny, and
Mhm.
sometimes she can just be so not funny it's not even funny. But
Yeah, especially her movies.
actually, she was actually she was actually really good here, and this is one of her better roles, I think.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't think that if her character of 22 was supposed to be the character that kids were going to kind of be invested in and feel, I think that didn't work. I don't think that kid's enough. I mean, I don't think that character's enough to appeal to kids. But yeah, it was fun. It was charming, and to see her transformation when she finally does when they are able to save her, it's moving and you feel it, and they
I,
did a good job.
I did kind of relate to Joe in one scene near the beginning where he's trying to teach, and then he's like, "All right, you're flat here, you're flat," and then he's like, "Chris, you forgot your sack," or like, "Chris,
Yeah,
pick up your
exactly.
sacks," and he's up there like, "I forgot my sacks," and he's like, "All right, you forgot your sacks. All right, let's continue." I was never in
Yeah,
band, I was in chorus, but in chorus, at least in my chorus, there was always one person who always forgot their music
yeah.
without fail. And so and so when that happened, I was like, yep, the struggle's real there, my man.
I really did enjoy the barbershop scenes when you get that sense of community, that sense that they support and know each other, love each other. I think that those were really nice, and him battling with how much does he commit to this dream because he loves it and he feels so passionate about it, but then he's also got this opportunity to go full time as a teacher. And what is he going to do? That's a pretty interesting discussion for a film like this to kind of take on.
Be the subject of many YouTube video essays.
Yes, I think so. I can
So
feel my
what
friend Griffin from he's got him going right now already.
soul? What does it all mean? Where
Yeah.
is the soul in soul? And the titles write themselves.
um, so Aaron Johnson says, I saw the trailer for Soul and it was decent. It does have a pleasant tone. A similar scenario happens in the film Onward, but with Onward, it has some core principles about family. Now, Onward is definitely, I guess, ambitious in the sense of the setting, and it's something new to have fantastical environments in a modern setting, but or at least semi-modern setting, with it being sort of the 70s. Was very creative, and I liked it. I enjoyed it, and it has a more classic arc of a story, particularly these two brothers. And there's so many movies with sort of unlikely duos that by the end they've grown to love each other, and they start out kind of annoyed with each other. That's a classic story. That's not a bad thing or a good thing. It's just a classic, and this is definitely trying to be something more new age, more innovative, and it's just a different experience. It's not the same thing as going for a kind of a tried and true formula story, which I really enjoy those. I watched 100 and something Christmas movies this year. I enjoy a formula film, but I also can appreciate something that's more surreal, that's more philosophical, that makes you think. I think it helps though to kind of know that's what you're sitting down to see, and to not be expecting Inside Out. And I feel like the marketing maybe hasn't done a good enough job in kind of differentiating what this film is. And I don't know. I feel like they could have done a better job with that.
I think this may be a tad controversial, but I would happily watch Onward over Soul. And it's not due to like an animation thing, because Soul wins in the animation department. But in terms of Onward, I felt more relation to the story there than I did with Soul. And the scene that at first when I first got out of Onward, I was like, okay, that was good. You know, it's Pixar, so of course it's going to be above average. But the more I've thought about it, the more it has gotten better, at least for me, especially the last scene where it's been a minute since I've seen the movie. Either the Tom Holland character or the Chris Pratt character has that one last scene with the ghost of their dad before he disappears into the sunset. Like, that scene is still excellent, and it's the best of that whole movie.
Yeah, with Soul, I am not actually that much of a dreamer as far as I mean, I have my goals, I have different things, but I'm more of a kind of person who, here's what's in front of me, I'm going to do it, as opposed to like, this is my great dream. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just not me as a human. And so I think, whereas I have a brother that I've had challenging relationships with over the course of our lives. And so I definitely connected more emotionally with the themes in Onward than with themes in Soul. And I guess for me, like, Soul is more the kind of movie that I greatly admire than I love. And I do greatly admire it, and I liked it. I just didn't love it. And I think that that it didn't quite all kind of come together for me to be because I guess what we're doing here is we're talking about on a very high level, right? We're talking about, is this film a masterpiece? No, I don't think it is. I don't think it's a masterpiece. It just doesn't all kind of come together to have that kind of like that level of experience. It's admirable. I like it. I think it's beautiful. I think it has a lot of things to say. I think you can discuss it. I don't really think the kids are going to like it. And whether that's a fault, I don't know. I'm still sort of struggling with that as a critic. I don't really know, because I always try to look at movies. Does it do what it's setting out to do? Right? If something is setting out to be a film for toddlers, does it do a good job being a film for toddlers? I'm not going to look at a Christopher Nolan movie or a slasher film the same way I'm going to look at a Winnie the Pooh movie, right? Which one does it succeed in what it's trying to do? I mean, I look at that way with these Hallmark Christmas movies. Does it succeed in what it's trying to do? It's not trying. It doesn't have lofty ambitions. Not that that should give it a pass, but you just look. I just think in everything in life, does it succeed in what it's trying to do? Is it satisfying? Is it fun? What is it trying to be, and does it work on that level? And if it's trying to be a family film, it does not work on that level, in my opinion, for Soul. But maybe that's not what they're trying to do. And so that's what I'm wrestling with as a critic and as a human. But I still definitely, of course, would recommend it. And I definitely liked it. I just, all this hyperbole about it's a masterpiece, it's one of the best Pixar movies ever made. And I totally, if that's how you feel, then that's fine. That's just not how I feel.
Now all I'm thinking about is I'd like to see Christopher Nolan direct a Winnie the Pooh movie. I have one word for you, Christopher Robin.
I'd like to watch that movie. We can get the John says, and I appreciate your Letterboxd ranked list on all those Christmas movies, Rachel, saving me a lot of time.
You watched about 15 million of them, so you're welcome, John.
Yeah, so I think I would give it an 8 out of 10. I'm going to change that on my Rotten Tomatoes. I think 7 is too low, but that's basically where I'm at on it with Soul. Where would you put it in your ranking?
Oh boy, I'm not sure. In terms of the technical side of things, I'd say it's a great, but in terms of the story, I do think it makes leaps that, to your point, Rachel, it tries to go for more heady concepts, but at the same time, I'm not really sure it knows what to say. So it's like great on a technical level, but it's good on a story level. Yeah. I know that makes no sense, and I've already broken my ranking already, but
Like I said, that particularly the middle section with the cat, I think that part doesn't like totally work for me.
I get why it's in there, and there are some jokes that actually did make me chuckle a tad, but I do see your point, and I would have just preferred if 22 and Joe would have been running through the city, and the little, like, I don't know what to call him, the little minion dude who makes all the counters on the ghost abacus were chasing them through the city, and he's voiced by a Scottish dude.
Yeah, and then they also have the like I said, there's sort of this crazy guy who just keeps appearing at all these different points.
Yeah, I liked him. He was voiced by Graham Norton, the host of the Graham Norton Show, and he's my favorite talk show host. So when I heard him, I'm like, hey, shout out to you, Graham, getting that Disney money. Very nice.
There you go. I personally still think, even though I think Soul will probably win the Oscar, I still think that Wolfwalkers is the best animated film of 2020. It's my favorite film of 2020. I loved it. I like it better than Soul. And so I think there's probably a little bit of that coming in there too, in there that, I don't know, I just more emotionally, I found it more emotionally resonant, more beautiful. I mean, they're both beautiful, but I just loved Wolfwalkers so much. And
Rachel, please join me in the not caring about the Oscars. It's so freeing over here. You don't have to give a crap about little tiny statues about yay big. Someone winning an Oscar, you could be like, oh, really, they won it? Or they could be like, oh, that was deserved, and neither in between. Come to the dark side. We have cookies.
Yeah, I currently have Soul at number 16 in my list of 169 films that I saw in 2020. I have Wolfwalkers at number 1. And so it's my third highest animated film of the year. I actually have Shaun the Sheep Farmageddon at 13 because I just thought that was so funny.
Yeah, and I agree with
that. Yeah. And I have a very random, weird top 20. I have everything from Timmy Failure, Mistakes Were Made, which I adored, to Soul, to I have The Vast of Night, Love and Monsters, Emma. So I have a quite eclectic group of movies in my top 20. But it's going to be fun. Over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be doing a lot of videos on my favorites, least favorites, all of that fun stuff going in. But yeah, one other movie that came out today is a movie called Sylvie's Love. And this I saw at Sundance. And this is a beautiful movie set in the 1950s stars Tessa Thompson as this woman named Sylvie. And it goes through her life and her loves, as you'd see. And it was really cool. The director, Eugene Ash, he spoke at Sundance and he said that he'd always wanted to see an old-fashioned love story a la Doris Day, but with people of color. And he'd never seen it. And so he was like, well, I'm going to make it. And he did. And it's really a beautiful movie. All of the production values, costumes, hair, all of that is just beautiful. And it's very old fashioned. It's even on the edge of soapy, I would say. It's a melodrama, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was beautiful. I'm excited to see it again now that it's in back, because like I said, I haven't seen it since Sundance. But I also give it a 7 out of 10. That's just my theme of the day, evidently.
It's either 5s or 7s.
Yeah, I guess so. So John has said, totally agree with the Oscars. I trust people like y'all and others like Wade Major and Leonard Maltin. You are closer to the people, and I mean that as a compliment. And
wow.
And Yuzu says, I shall join you on that, Ryan.
Welcome to the club, Yuzu.
Yeah.
You Zoom every Friday.
I'm honored to be put in the same camp as Leonard Maltin. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, he's one of he's one of the all-time greats. He's such a legend. To even be in like the shoe closet of him and his daughter Jessie is just is a supreme compliment to me, and I'm sure to Rachel. So thank you, John. That means a lot.
Definitely. Well, so it's pretty good weekend for movies, I would say. Like I said, I gave every single one of the 6 films that came out today, I gave them all fresh to varying degrees. So that is pretty good. And I would say that my favorite is so my favorite of the ones we talked about is actually Sylvie's Love. Or no, it's Soul, and then Sylvie's Love, and then News of the World, and then which one am I? Oh, and then Promising Young Women, and then Wonder Woman 84. So I have Wonder Woman 84 at 79 right now out of 169 in my ranking. So there you go. That's our thoughts. We have another comment here. The Santa Claus with Tim Allen came out in 1994, same as other Disney movies that year. Tim Allen is hilarious. Judge Reinhold is funny in the film, but not as funny when he was in Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah, I like the Santa Claus. It's that movie was made like at the height of like Tim Allen mania. Like he was in Home Improvement. He had just written a book that was like a #1 bestseller, and he was in that movie around the same time. And a year after that, he would be in a little movie. Y'all might have heard of it. It's called Toy Story.
Yeah.
Like you can even probably see the VHS in the background there.
And I personally have loved all of the Toy Story movies. I think they were all just excellent. All 4. I love them all. So there we go. That's our thoughts. And people are like, well, where would you rank Soul? I just don't know right now. I love Pixar so much that it might be pretty low, but that's only because I just love so many of their movies so much. But I don't know. I have to think about it more. I can't decide. But I probably have it somewhere near.
I think it's somewhere on the lower tier, at least for me. I mean, spoiler alert, on my channel, I'm going to be doing a Pixar ranking to close out the year. So I've been thinking a lot about, which movie goes where and all that. And I was waiting to see Soul to finally sit myself down and like legit like put each movie in its place. And now that I've seen Soul, I mean, in terms of attempt, I would say it's in the top tier, but in execution, I would have to say it's in the lower tier. It's hard because Pixar is
so good.
It's so good. Like even their bad movies like Cars 2, Cars 3, they still have some redeeming quality.
Right. I mean, I would probably put it around wherever I put Bug's Life.
So that's either the top, the middle, or the bottom.
It'd be like the nearing towards, well, like on the, I don't know, somewhere, it'd probably be around somewhere like 13, 14 out of all the movies, is my guess.
Oh, hey, John Lusty's following me on Letterboxd. Thank you.
Very good. All right. Well, we'll let you know. I will put out a ranking one of these days, but I just need more time to think about it because I don't know. I know I like it, but I just don't know how much I like it compared to these other ones that I've seen so many times. And anyway, we'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. But yeah, let us know your thoughts in the comment section. We'd love to hear. And if you like us doing these streams, we'd love to hear that as well. And thank you so much for the comments that we did have. That was really fun. And make sure you check out every Friday. We have Hidden Gems podcast on all the places that you listen to podcasts and here on YouTube. And then we also have all the other good content at Rachel's Reviews. So make sure you check that out. We're going to have a recording. We're going to be recording me and Stanford, our episode on Pinocchio coming up this week. So that will be really fun. And we got lots of other good stuff. And then, Ryan, where can people find you?
They can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd, as John just did, at RyanCam20. And then there's my YouTube channel, which is just called Ryan Cam. For the rest of the year, it's going to be mostly down to ranking videos. I'm going to be doing a DCEU ranking in honor of Wonder Woman and doing a Pixar ranking in honor of Soul. Totes no pressure on the Pixar one because it's going to be... It's going to be very hard, but I'm going to do it. And then starting this these past couple of days, I've been sitting down to work on my content calendar for 2021, and it is almost complete. I'm going to plan on wrapping up the AFI project somewhere, like I want to say the middle of the year, maybe March or April. And so I've got a lot of movies left to cover. I've gotten across the halfway point, and I still got a lot. But I'm also going to be reviewing new releases again because there's a theater close to me that's open, and I'm going to go. Believe me, the theater is very safe. It's healthy. They're taking all of the necessary precautions, and I don't really like anyone sitting next to me in the theater anyway. So if anyone does sit next to me, I'm going to move. Yeah. So I'm going to be doing AFI projects, new releases, special videos. I've got definitely like new concept videos I'm going to be trying out. So if you all haven't subscribed, I humbly ask that you please do, because I'm going to be putting a lot of time into the channel. I'm very proud of it. 2020 was a very big year for the channel. I started off at about 74, 75 subscribers, and I'm going to end it around 117 or possibly 120, fingers crossed. And I'm just truly grateful. So if you all haven't checked me out, I highly recommend that you please do, because like I said, I put a lot of time into it, and I'm very happy with where it is and where it's going.
Yeah, you should all definitely subscribe. And make sure you're checking out the Hallmarkies podcast as well. We're going to basically, the entire month of January is going to be a bunch of list episodes, as well as continuing on every Monday. We're going to have interviews, and those are always really fun. And which is a lot of good stuff coming up, so you don't want to miss it. And then also make sure you're following make sure you're following Rachel's reviews. And also we have our patron group, which we're going to be having really fun watch-alongs coming up this next year. We've already got our watch-along for January planned, where we are going to have actress Natalie Hall is going to be with us, and she's delightful and super fun. So if you ever wanted to just ask about what it's like to be an actress and to, make movies, there's your chance. So there's a lot of benefits to becoming a patron. Then we also have our merch store, which is really fun too. And so check that out, and all the information is in the description. And thanks again, Ryan. This was so much fun. And Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.